In this lesson, we're going to fast forward from Greek through Roman theater. I'm going to give you some visuals to help you more clearly envision what is discussed in our textbook as well as the other video you'll be watching. Roman theater built upon Greek style and took it to extremes. Not just in the plays, but as you can see here, they adapted the Greek theater architecture too, innovating and changing it according to their needs. The skyline front, which is this front area here, became an ornate facade, which as you can see got taller and could be made of materials like marble, glass, or gilded wood. Some theaters featured a retractable roof or awning called a velarium, that's this here, to shade the audience. Roman engineers were masters of controlling water, and it's believed that some form of air conditioning may have existed in some theaters. In at least one case, audiences were treated to an extremely fine mist of water mixed with perfume that was piped to sprinklers overhead. Theaters were huge, some seating up to 80,000 spectators, and were filled with statuary to decorate the theater spaces. Many of these theaters are still standing in Rome today. You see how big they are, like huge football stadiums. There's people standing down there. And as you can see, the facade of the stage was solid. It didn't change from performance to performance. The works were created to fit the space, not the other way around. This is one of the most famous spaces that we have probably all heard of, the Roman Colosseum. This was the ground level here, where you see this platform. And below ground, in these galleries, in these galleries here, is where the gladiators and wild animals and other entities that were going to do battle were held before they were brought up to ground level to perform for the audience. They could also flood the Colosseum for naumachia, which were naval battles conducted with real ships. Some of the major forms of Roman theater were popular entertainments like animal acts and battles, etc. That's what the Colosseum was used for. Pantomimes, which were narratives or stories sung by a chorus while the stories were acted out by dancers. These performances were accompanied by musicians and sponsored by nobility. Tragedies were the most famous playwright we still know of today for tragedies was Seneca. His plays emphasized on-stage violence and the appearance of supernatural characters. Comedies were the best-known comic playwrights were Plautus and Terence. Plautus was best known for domestic romantic comedies using stock characters, which we'll talk about in a minute, slapstick and physical comedy, and much of the dialogue was sung. Terence's works were similar to Plautus, but they were a little more refined. They had more emphasis on verbal wit, and the dialogue in his plays was mostly spoken. Roman theater began to use stock characters, which were common types that could be easily recognizable by the audience. So the lover boy was handsome but dumb and rebels against authority. The maiden was beautiful but usually dumb, occasionally clever. And she was, of course, paired with the lover boy. The old man was overprotective, sometimes foolish, usually obstructed the young lovers, and miserly or cheap with his money. The wife was suspicious, mean, and strict. The soldier was arrogant and chased women. The servant was clever, smart, tricky, used elaborate schemes to gain freedom or food. The parasite was a hanger-on who would flatter those in power to gain accommodations and money and free food. And the courtesan was the mistress. So these character types became even more clearly pronounced later in history. The actors developed a code to tell the audience about the characters. For example, a purple robe meant the character was a rich man. A yellow robe meant the character was a woman. This was needed early in Roman theater, as originally the female characters were played by men, but as Roman theater progressed, women took on those roles. A yellow tassel meant the character was a god. A red wig meant the character was a servant. White robes and white wigs meant the characters were elderly. A green cape meant the character was a senator or a civil servant, and a sword meant the character was a soldier. Roman theater was noted for its no-holds-barred techniques. Battles, actual battles on stage, actual crucifixions, actual sexual acts. It was all done right there on the stage. There was little value for life. Licentiousness reigned. There were festivals associated with pagan gods. They ridiculed the Christian sacraments, made fun of the churches, killed Christians for entertainment. They used stock characters, stock situations, mime, and farce. And the last recorded performance of Roman-style theater was in 533 of the Christian era. So now I want you to think about if Oedipus was staged in a Roman theater instead of in a Greek theater, how would it be different than what we saw with Greek theater? So remember, the play describes a lot of action that happens off stage, right? So we'll be having a discussion question where I'll be asking you to describe how you envision Oedipus Rex or Oedipus the King being performed for Roman audiences.